The death of George Floyd has prompted calls for reform in policing and changes in the way suspects are handled by officers. And today, Dr. Wornie joins us to discuss this topic. He is the director of the Race and Social Policy Research Center, also a professor of Africana Studies and Sociology at Virginia Tech's College of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
I want you to explain the policy of handling a suspect when a police officer is in a situation where he or she believes that that person is a threat to themselves as well as others.
Well, most of that comes from a Supreme Court decision in 1989, which kind of changed the policies and practices of policing a bit from what had happened in the earlier 1980s, where at first the issue was whether or not a person who was about to be apprehended or arrested or whatever, the issue was whether or not that person's Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizure were infringed. But in 1989, the Supreme Court decision written by Justice Rehnquist changed that to say that it must be judged on the basis of a reasonable officer at the time, not after the fact, not 2020 after the fact. One of the most important things after the fact that we find is often African Americans are shot and killed who are unarmed. And so one of the after fact issues is finding out that there is no arm, there is no gun, there is no weapon. And so police officers can, by and large, be excused if they say they thought they had reasonable fear of some danger to themselves. Now, that's in their mind. That's not objective at all, but that's what the Supreme Court decision argues. And that is, to me, one of the most problematic aspects of this whole situation.
Can we see changes in this area? What are you hoping will happen in order to change the reality of this for so many people of color?
Well, I argue that we will see no major reduction in police violence against citizens unless we do something about this policies and practices as a result of this Supreme Court decision. Because as long as police officers feel that they have a right to shoot, whether or not there is any concrete evidence that they need to shoot, and then they are prosecuted or not prosecuted on that basis, then we will continue to have these incidences. I'm not hopeful that many of the reforms that people are talking about are going to solve the issue. I think any reform is better than no reform. So I'm not against reforms. I'm just saying that until this is addressed, I would argue that we are not going to see substantial changes.
Right now, there is significant movement regarding police reform, both on the local and the national level. We know that the Congressional Black Caucus is working on a package that reportedly includes a federal chokehold ban, a review of police training standards, as well as a reform of the legal doctrine that shields police officers from legal liability. Of all of these, what do you think is most significant here?
Well, the latter one, shielding them from a liability, is related but not directly a result of that Supreme Court decision. I think that's the most important. I think they're all important. And to me, one of the things that I don't think you mentioned was the use of the early 1990s law that provides the Justice Department with the ability to have policies and practices suits against police departments. At the time that President Obama left office, the Justice Department had 25 cities under consent decrees where they were working with them to change their policies and practices because their policies and practices had been found to be problematic. But as soon as the Trump administration came in and Jeff Sessions became Attorney General, he dropped all 25. So we need a restoration of that and a Justice Department which will attend to these and consider that these are problems that need to be addressed.
All right, Dr. Wornie Reed, professor at Virginia Tech, we thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your insight.
Thank you.
And coming up next.